All right, welcome to the Chapter 2.1 video lecture series. In this chapter, we're going to look at one categorical variable and also two categorical variables. So analyzing just categorical variables, we'll look at frequency tables and proportions and the way to visualize. We'll look at bar charts and pie charts. There are more than one way to visualize categorical variables, but we'll just focus on these two. And then for the second half of this video lecture, we'll talk about summarizing and visualizing two categorical variables, looking at two-way tables, difference of proportions, and also side-by-side and segmented bar charts. Okay, first let's do a couple of review questions. First kind of looking at the big picture for this class. In general, we're thinking about analyzing a big, moving, changing population like humans. The idea is we can't get information about the entire population, or it doesn't really exist because the population is changing. We still want to get an idea, so we take a sample. And the idea is we're going to study the sample, get information from the sample, and then really after chapter 2, we're going to kind of move from what can we say about the population once we have information about this sample. But for chapter 2, we're going to focus on, well, how do we just describe the data that we have? This branch is called Descriptive Statistics, the idea of categorizing, analyzing, visualizing your sample data. Okay, now let's look at a couple of review questions. Suppose we were to find some interesting relationships and data collected in a survey given to all of you. Can we make any conclusions about causality? The answer to that is no. Hopefully you thought no. And the reason is if you're doing surveys, that's considered observational data. That could be good data. We can get very good and interesting results from observational data, but we cannot make conclusions about causality. Excuse me. Suppose we were to find some interesting relationships in data collected in a survey given to all of you. So this is you in statistics class. Can we generalize the results of the sample to all students at SRJC? And hopefully the answer to that is also no. And the reason why is your class of statistics students is not random. You chose to take this class. And I would argue it's not representative of the population. Not everyone at SRJC has to take statistics. So you are not representative and not random. We could, if we get information from our class, we could say that that could generalize the information to SRJC students that have to take statistics, possibly, but we can't talk about all of the school students. Okay, so in order to make sense of data, we need to summarize and visualize it. That's the descriptive statistics. Summarizing and visualizing variables and relationships between variables is known as descriptive statistics or exploratory data analysis. So we're going to think about two parts of this class. In chapters 1 and 2, we're looking at the idea of descriptive statistics. And then chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6, we're going to move over to inferential statistics. But for chapter 2, this type of summary statistics and visualization methods depend on the type of variables being analyzed. So that's why we had all those questions and examples of looking at categorical versus quantitative data. And remember, it's not the answer, because oftentimes we're going to turn categorical data into proportions, into numbers, but the fact that your answer is a category, not a number. So looking at one example, random sample of US adults in 2012 were surveyed regarding what type of cell phone they used. And the options were Android, iPhone, BlackBerry, you can tell it's dated, non-smartphone, such as a flip phone, or no cell phone. All right, here are the results given in a frequency table. So the frequency table just is what it says. It gives a frequency of all of these outcomes. Notice right here, go back here, this is one categorical variable, because if you were given this question, your response would be one of these categories. It wouldn't be one of these numbers. All right, and frequencies are important, of course. I would argue more importantly is relative frequency or proportion. So we want to know, well, what proportion in a category is founded by the number in that category divided by the total sample size. I'm pretty sure this seems familiar to you. What might be new is the notation. So we're going to use P with a little hat on top, a little pointy hat, or you could just write P hat like this right here, okay? But P hat is a proportion for a sample, and the proportion for a population is just P. This might make a little bit more sense when we get to chapters 3 and 4, why we have two different notations for the same thing. Both of these represent proportion, but we want to talk about this P hat as an actual number, like 45% or 89%, something like that, where this P is more of an idea, the proportion of SRJC students that own an iPhone. It's not an exact number because the population changes, students drop, varies by semester, but P hat is an actual number we can calculate. Okay, so from this information, what proportion of adult sample do not own a cell phone? And we just need to take, this notation is P hat, 293 divided by 2253. And for homework, unless it's specified clearly, homework or exams, unless it's specified clearly, I'm okay leaving your sample proportions as unreduced fractions. If you round, I'll state round to 2 or 3 decimals, or you can write it as a percentage. Just make sure to keep your percent sign. So I'm actually okay with all 3 of these form for homework or exams, unless I or the homework specifies otherwise. All right, and I said before, relative frequency is just another term for proportion. Proportion is relative frequency. And here we got the relative frequency of all those categories. We just did the cell phone on the previous slide to get this 13%. And then you would take all those total frequency divided by the total number to get these values. And notice, and one reason we're looking at, these outcomes, they should all sum to 1. We also talk about in chapter P, the sum of all proportions in a probability function should add to 1. This is the exact same idea. All right, let's go through another example. People were given different water to taste and asked to choose their top choice. Blinding was used, so participants did not know which water was which. So they were given just a glass of water, not said what kind it was. And here's the frequency below for their top choice. 10 chose tap water, 25 Aquafina, 51 Fiji, 24 Sam's Choice. So if we want to create a relative frequency table, all we need to do is first get a total. Okay, here are all the frequencies. What's the total? Add them up to get 100. And then take each of the frequencies and divide it by the total. In this case, it's 100, so the numbers convert very nicely. 0.1, 0.25, 0.41, 0.24. But of course, if the total is not a nice number, these decimals will be a little bit messier. All right, another way to visualize, the first way we look at visualizing categorical data is a bar plot. The height of the bar corresponds to the number of cases falling in each category. So here we have the no phone. Here that was 400 plus, and all the different options. Generally, you want your bar plots to start at 0 and then give the frequency on the y-axis. You could also do a similar visualization with a pie chart. The relative area of each slice of the pie corresponds to the proportion of each category. So here we go, we have all the options as well. All right, and you could go over and create graphics using Stachy. I've actually made a bunch of videos kind of going over this that I'll post occasionally when we need to use those. I'll go over this fairly quickly right now. Let's see. All right, so here I've got Stachy, and you could just Google Stachy. This is the software I'm going to use. It's web-based software, so you need internet access. And here, I think there's maybe too many options in the main screen here. But for right now, Descriptive Statistics, we're looking at Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is Descriptive Statistics. Click on one categorical variable. Here we've got one categorical variable. You can see the statistics on the side. There's some. If you click on this drop-down menu, there's a bunch of pre-packaged data here. So here we go back to that cell phone type example. And here we can also show the data table. You can upload files as well. We'll do this later this semester. How do you upload files to bring in your own data into here? So upload a CSV file. I'll go over that in a future video. All right. So this summarizes one categorical variable. Looking at the summary statistics for one categorical variable, really just proportion. We're also going to look at frequency tables, the relative frequency table, which is just a proportion table. And for visualization, the main ways we're going to visualize one categorical variable is either a bar chart or a pie chart. All right, in the next video, we're going to go over how to analyze two categorical variables at the same time.